Hello, my name is Calderon. I'm here with our team. I'm with Sarah and Cassandra. We're going to be talking about our individual reports. My report was the Horizon 2020 Teaching and Learning Edition. What do we do now? It basically looked at different countries and their problems that was happening, and they offered solutions. The overall concept was basically that schools are facing problems with diversity. They don't have enough low economic students or enough enrollment as it is, and their solutions were like helping students who are struggling to make it through the schools. They also had a problem of like climate change. Many schools were flooding, they were catching on fire, and they were basically saying that they should offer more online learning, which was the basic concept of everything. I know they were talking about like Australia, they were talking about Canada, Egyptian, the French, and most of them were talking about the same thing. And they were also talking about the US community college and how only 40% of students are graduating within 6 years, and then the rest they're not doing it. And again, it went back to helping students with like that are facing low economic status, and they're having chatbots help them and helping them with real support time filling out all this information, which I thought was very interesting that they're trying to help students more. And I feel that if they don't do this, we're never gonna be able to go on as a whole of a people. So I thought this article was very refreshing because, like I said, it talks about all these countries, it talks about all the problems that they're facing, but it also talks about solutions, which is something that you don't really see nowadays. They just talk about the problems and just kind of leave you like, okay, now what? All right. So uh, overall, that was what my article was about. Sarah, what was yours about?
So I read the 2017 NMC Technology Outlook for Northern Schools, but within that article, because I've read it before, so I mainly focus on significant challenges and the time to adoption. So basically, within this whole article, they had from the significant challenges, they had it set up. Excuse me, I can't talk today. Set up in three different categories. So they had the solvable, difficult, and wicked. And then with each challenge, they had like three that they found, but I'm only going to be talking about three from each category that I liked. So the first one was blending formal and informal learning. They basically said it has helped out a lot with learning, how like it's at the touch of your hands or at the touch of a button. You can like look up how to build a kite, how to like how the weather happens. It's basic. You can look up anything. And they basically said a challenge for them was that rewarding and acknowledging skills mastered outside of the classroom has been a huge challenge, because when you're in the classroom, it's easy to talk to the students, but it's really hard for them to like when they're outside of the classroom. It's really hard for them to see you in person. You don't have like that verbal communication. So a solution they came up with was a tool that helped the students analyze what they're learning, which I really do think it's really good that they did, because half the time you give students something and they don't know, or they don't really think about what they're learning. They just do it and then they move on to the next assignment. So I really do think that was a cool thing to add. For the difficult, they had the balancing connected and unconnected life, which I did really appreciate them talking about, because now that technology is more important and prominent in today's society, it's really crucial to balance your online life versus your offline life. So there's talking about how teachers should start promoting balance, how they should also have some kind of trainings or like some kind of ways to tell students that yes, it's good to be online, but not all day. And when you access stuff online, it's very crucial for you to be mindful of what websites you go to, what information you put out there, because there's a lot of bad people out there that are going to take your information. And a solution they said was solving this challenge was it's going to take efforts between policymakers and the school leaders to really find out like what they can do to incorporate having like the students know like, hey, this is not okay, especially because you basically have a digital footprint in the technology. So I do think kind of training for the teachers and the students will really help them understand like, hey, like it's you got to be safe and protected. And the last thing that they talked about from the wicked challenges was the achievement gap, and how they're basically saying that there was a lot of socioeconomic issues that have caused this achievement gap between like gender and race and ethnicity, and even your income, your household income. Like all of these things are affecting the children. So I do think that really promoting like them, like they did talk about solution, having them go to like a counselor or some kind of person to help them with their problems. I don't really think that's effective in my opinion. I do think that they should have some kind of system where they come up with something else to help students. Like maybe if you have a project and you have a child, like it deals with technology, and you have a child that doesn't have access at home, you can have them work on it in your classroom during your free time, during lunchtime, during recess, whatever, so that they can feel like they're still a part of the classroom. Because if students realize that that other student is different, they can get picked on, and that's not okay. And then the last thing they talked about was the time to adoption. Out of all the things, I mean, I do think that with wearable technology, that was one of the things that they talked about. It's very prominent in today's society. I mean, I have an Apple Watch, which is what the wearable technology that they talked about. It tracks your health, it tracks your steps. So they were right on target with that. And the last thing that really stuck with me before I let Cassandra's talk is that they talked about virtual and remote learning and how they actually designed an app that helps students with their science experiments. So it's all virtual, like it's 3D, so you can see everything. And they said that the students actually felt more comfortable using that app so that because it doesn't have like the real equipment, no chemicals, and they felt more at ease, and they also were understanding the material better. So I thought that was cool. So overall, I really enjoyed looking at these challenges and the adoptions, and I really learned a lot of information from this article.
All right, thank you, Sarah. My name is Cassandra, and I did an older report. It was the 2016 K through 12 edition, Significant Challenges Impeding K through 12 Educational Technology Adoption. And I focused on the trends or the long-term trends that were predicted at the time. The first one was redesigning learning spaces. This is also kind of changing your pedagogy and really looking at everything being kind of learner based. And they also talked about, um, older schools and how some, you know, districts are at the time were struggling to keep up with, building maintenance and things like that. So there was a move to go to green schools, and I'm not sure where we've or how far, what progress that we've made with that, but um, that's kind of what they were projecting at the time. And obviously now we're more doing our remote learning and things online. So I don't know if they've relooked at that. The next trend was rethinking how schools work, which is to me more about the teacher's role as a facilitator. Like Sarah was talking about, you can look up anything to teach you whatever it is. So instead of it being such a teacher driven and environment, this is more about us facilitating with the needed training the students utilizing technology. Right. So the next trend was collaborative learning, which I think we've all been pushing towards and utilizing in our classrooms. It's what we're doing right now. Studies show that students, they work best when they're doing collaborative learning. So that was one thing we were really pushing towards. Um, and I think we're doing kind of a fantastic job with, Zoom and everything else that we have access to now. So another trend was deeper learning approaches, and this was just having students really master whatever it is that they're learning. Not only that, having them be, they project or say what it is that they would like to learn and come up with a project for them to create themselves and produce a product. And that could be considered, mastering a subject or, content. So I really like that because I do know we're seeing that a lot more with students utilizing, they all want to make PowerPoints about things and do presentations digitally. So our students are much more digitally fluent. And I think that has created a lot of deeper learning approaches. So,
Yeah, I do agree with you, Cassandra. I mean, I've seen even in my after school program, a lot of the students like they know so much about technology nowadays. Like, 'cause they have their own devices that the district gave them, and they're constantly. Sometimes they'll teach me things, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that. Like, that's crazy. Like, like, and they're so helpful too. Like, especially if sometimes like I'm even sometimes if I'm having problems like with technology, like say setting up like our little like game station that we have, they'll come and help me, and I'm like, oh, thank you, I didn't think about that. So I do agree with you that as the younger generation gets older, they are going to be more inclined to like knowing more about technology than the older generation, which is why teachers need to get trained on a lot of the stuff that we use because it's important.
I actually think that's
Absolutely.
a really cool article. I wonder if I selected it. It sounds like something I would select just by looking at the title. Um, but I like how all of our articles was kind of talking about like digital fluency. Um, it's mine focuses on higher education, and yours is focusing on like elementary and like high school throughout.
Mhm.
And the universities right now are having a problem with students not being fluent in technology. So now I'm thinking that because of that, now we're seeing this rise in technology in elementary. And that's where, your article kind of comes in because mine's 4 years later than yours. So it's like, okay, what happened because we didn't take care of stuff in 2016? Well, now we don't have seniors who are techno they're not fluent with technology. They don't have that literacy that they should. And like you said, I like that you mentioned about the training. I know that my Canadian higher education, the problem was actually there wasn't enough training for the generations that are going into establishments, and now they need to provide training for all these people who are coming in because they don't know how to use all of that.
Yeah, and it's stressful. I mean,
Absolutely.
last semester, my mentor teachers, they didn't know how to use like certain software, and I knew how to use it, so I helped them. But they were so stressed, and like adding like I do think teachers need to be trained because if you're not trained on something, you're gonna have stress about teaching what you need to teach the kids, but you're also gonna have added on stress of like, okay, how do I do this technology? Like I'm not comfortable
Yeah,
with.
kind of like what we all went through when this all hybrid learning started. I'm pretty sure every teacher I know went through an incredible amount of stress trying to figure all of this out.
Yeah.
Mm, absolutely. It was like panic attack. I mean, we just accelerated through 4 or 5 years, I feel, faster than what we would have been had COVID-19 not happened, just in my personal opinion.
It's a cursing and a bliss because like all my students now have iPads. All the students in my district have an iPad, and which is something that would not have happened. They would have spent the money elsewhere. But
Mhm.
because of that, now all the students are rising in technology. We're fixing so many problems. We're probably going to close a
Yeah,
lot of achievement gaps now, um,
absolutely.
which is a problem that I saw throughout all of our articles because we did have a discussion before this discussion, and we talked about it in depth. So we just decided to kind of compartmentalize our 30-minute, 40-minute video that we had. And so I found it really interesting that all of our articles kind of spoke about like low economic status. Yours talked about how now they're having to do um, what is it called? Their counseling, and mine was talking about how they're just not enrolling in college or they're dropping out because they can't deal with all the problems. And I know yours mentioned it as well. So I think it's cool how they mention all these challenges and problems throughout the articles and how they just kind of align.
Yeah, same.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, it seems like we have had a very great discussion in total, about 45 minutes. So, thank you, ladies, for being here. And thank you guys for watching our video. Please leave us some feedback. And I am so grateful to have worked with you, ladies. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.